Hi, this is a just quick video covering how the Eclipse Phase, the second edition character creation works. So I'm just going to make a quick character. So the first thing that you do is you basically come up with a character premise. I'm going to make a character who's sort of like an assassin, and I'm going to kind of just work from there. On the left here, you can see I'm using Roll20's automatic character sheet generator. That makes things a bit more convenient. It does some of the auto calculations for you. Clork Lenk is the name that the Roll20 name generator came up with, so that's the one that I'm going to use. So as you can see right here, which I have the PDF of the book open right here, there are 13 steps to character creation. The first one that you're supposed to do, the first one listed is background. I'm actually going to go a step earlier. I'm going to start with name. Clork Lenk was the name that Roll20 came up with, and that's the one I'm going to stick with because I think it's funny. Gender identity, I'm going to say female. Actual age, 37. That seems like a good number. So now step one is background. So background is basically where is your character from, what is kind of the start of their life. And I'm going to say hyper elite. You lived in the top percent with abundant wealth and resources. Because I think it would be really cool if I was like a wildly successful assassin who, I'm like, during the day I'm living large and living in mansions and have all this money, and then at night I go killing people. So I'm going to put down Hyper Elite. And Hyper Elite gives me all of these skills, which is really cool. So I'm going to just fill those out real quick. Alright, and I'm back. I'm back. You can see I now have filled out all those skills that I get for being a Hyper Elite, which is 30 in athletics, 30 in deceive, 50 in kinesex, however you pronounce that, 30 in persuade, 30 in provoke, 60 in one of the following. I chose stock market, as you can see here, and 30 in economics is what I chose for my other knowledge. So that's my background. I'm a hyper elite. I know a lot about finances. I know a lot about money. I'm very good at sort of talking to people. I have that background. I'm good at setting up connections. And now we're going to go to the next one. And you're going to pick a career. So your background is sort of where you're from. Your career is what you do. And so since I'm an assassin, I'm going to pick something that makes me really good at fighting people. So I'm going to pick soldier. So very similar to the last one, you pick it, and then it gives you a bunch of different skills. So I am going to fill out those skills on my character sheet. And I just finished, so you can look. I got 40 points in fray, 60 points in guns, which is a lot, 30 in melee, and then I got 2 more knowledges, which I chose security ops and gambling. The idea being that if I'm an assassin, I might have to sneak by security, so it would be helpful to kind of know about different security operations. And so after you've chosen your career, now you choose an interest. Now, an interest, it's like just some tertiary extra thing that your character does or has. If you wanted to make a character who uses psychic abilities, this is where you'd pick async, but we're not doing that. We're going to build an assassin who doesn't use that. So I'm going to pick fighter because I fight people. And so that gives me some more skills. And so you might notice that some of these are skills that we already have. Fray, guns, melee, knowledge, security ops, those are all things that being a soldier gives you. So the way that works is you just add one to the other. So I now have 100 points in security ops. I have plus 20 in fray, which brings me up to 60 ranks. And then I have plus 40 in melee, which brings me up to 70. And then finally, I have another 40 in. Oh, sorry, I already said that. I think that's all of them. So now you might notice that that security ops, my total on that brings me up past 105 on this. So a rule of the game is that you can't have more than 80. of your combined ranks plus your aptitudes, and we'll cover aptitudes later. So what happens is, if while you're choosing your skills, if you're ever at a point where you would have more than 80 combined, you subtract the difference, which 105 minus 80, that's 25. So this goes down to 75, and you get to place those points elsewhere. Now, if you're moving ranks around from knowledge, from like one knowledge skill, it has to be moved to another knowledge skill. So you couldn't do 25 points from security ops into, say, athletics. So I'm going to move that to gambling, because it seems exciting. Maybe I'll have a mark that I have to kill who's in a casino, and yeah, it just seems like it would be a fun skill to have. All right, and so now that I've done that, I've chosen my interest. So now we're going to scroll down. Step 4 is factions. Now, there are a lot of different factions that you can choose from, all right? I suggest going through the book and reading what all the different ones do. However, I went ahead and I chose a faction that I liked, which was Venusian. My character's from Venus, it seems like a sort of, it's capitalist, but not too capitalist. Seems like it sort of fits the character I'm going for, where I have a lot of money, but I'm not all about the money. Sometimes I like to give back a little. That seems about right. Yeah, friendlier hyper-capitalism is the way the book describes it, so there we go. And so then you get to increase your reputation with that faction by 30. So I'm going to get a 30 ranks in knowledge Venus, or Venusian, I guess. And what that means is, if I'm ever at a point where I want to know more about my faction that I'm a part of, I get to make a roll for it. All right, and so I'm good. So it also affects motivations later on, but we'll cover that in a bit. Finally, we go to aptitudes, which I referenced earlier. So the way these work out, they have a bunch of templates that they suggest using. The way that I found most convenient for me, though, is to just put 15 in everything to start out with, and then you can take some away from one skill and put it into another. You cannot have more than a maximum of 30 or a minimum of 5 in any one aptitude, but otherwise you can move them around wherever you want. I don't like going below 10 for anything, but yeah. And so, you can read through what each of these do, but for my assassin, I'm thinking I'm going to care a lot about reflexes and somatics. So I'm going to take away 5 of cognition, 5 of intuition, and 5 of savvy, and put those 15 into reflexes for a total of 30. And then I'm going to reduce my willpower by 5 and put that into somatics. It's a little min-maxy, but it's what I'm going for. I want to be really good at what I do. All right, and so that's my aptitudes. Now, after you finish your aptitudes, you go through your total skills again, which is step 6. And remember how earlier, if there was anything over 80, you'd have to move it somewhere else? Well, security ops is at 85. So you take 5 away from there, and I'm going to put it into knowledge Venusian, because knowledge skills can only go to other knowledge skills. However, if we go down here, due to the way that fray is calculated, you can see I'm well over 80. So I have to remove 40 from my ranks. And so I have to remove 40 from my ranks, and I can put it somewhere else. So let's put it into infiltrate, because I want to be sneaky, and none of my other things gave me infiltrate. And then guns, I'm at 90, so I remove 10. And I'm going to put that also into infiltrate. And let's see, is anything else? Yes, melee is over 80, so I'm going to take 10 out of that. And let's put it into, let's say, deceive. I'm pretty good at lying. All right, so that finishes total skills. So now we go to languages. Each character starts out knowing 2 languages. You know a bit more if your cognition and intelligence are really high, but I have 10s in both of those, so I don't. So I'm going to say that my character speaks English. And I'm going to say my character speaks... What kind of a name do you think Lenk is? Sounds kind of German to me. Lenke. So, German. Those are my two languages. And, you might want to wait until you know what kind of a setting you're playing in before you choose that, but I'm going to choose English and German. So now we go to flex. Each character always gets one flex, and so that goes under morph. Your ego has one flex point. And then you go to reputation. So reputation is basically how much different factions like you. Each one stands for something different. Go through the book, sort of decide which ones you want to have like you. I'm going to go and say that I have 40 in C rep and 60 in F rep. But you have 100 you can spend wherever you want. The book recommends either doing a 60-40 split or a 50-25-25. I'm just doing 60-40 for this case. All right, after reputation, now it's time for the fun part, customization. You have 20 customization points to spend, so I'm going to spend them, and then I will get right back to you. Okay, and so I finished allocating my CP. I mostly used it to purchase different traits, but you can see this table right here as how it breaks down different costs for different things. But I had 20 to spend. So I chose the Tier 4 Resources trait, which cost me 8 CP. That is the most expensive trait in the game, and what that does is I can basically start out with more equipment, and I have access to more items when I play. I also have Fitness and Quickness, Tier 3, and that gives me a plus 15 on my any and all reflexes and somatics checks. And then I have the Allies trait, which means that I have people who want to help me. And then I chose a negative trait. Negative traits give you more CP to spend, but your character has some sort of a penalty. I chose enemy. So my character has some kind of a sworn enemy who hates me and is trying to work against me. Since my character is an assassin who lives in the public light as a celebrity, I'm thinking my enemy could be some kind of maybe a person who I killed their parents some time ago, and now they kind of know who I am, but they don't have any evidence, so they're trying to use all of their resources to prove that I'm an assassin. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm imagining for an enemy. I would discuss it with my game master, and we would work something out. And then that brings me at that's how I spent most of my CP. But because I have extra CP to spend from taking a negative trait, I went into my skills, and I spent 2 in Deceive, so I got 10 more ranks in Deceive. And then I chose a specialization in guns and melee. So anytime I use a railgun, I get an additional plus 10, and anytime I use a blade, I get an additional plus 10. That is combined with my plus 15 that I get on any somatics and reflex checks. You might notice that my total is now above 80 for a bunch of these. That's okay. The limit of only having up to 80 only applies if it's your ranks and your aptitudes, so because I have a bunch of other things that give me bonuses, I'm able to go above that limit. So now my guns and melee are both well over 80. They're both 105, which is awesome. Alright, and so next are your derived stats. Because I'm using a Roll20 character sheet, it's all done automatically for me, so it's easy. It's all right there. I'm not really going to cover it. But after that, we get to choose my starting morph and gear. So my morph, alright, that is basically your body, alright? You can read about it in the thing, but normally you start out with 6.6 MP to spend. Because I have resources, I get an additional 4, so that means I have 10 to spend. So I'm going to spend those real quickly, and I'll get back to you when I finish. Alright, and I just finished going through. I chose a ghost as my morph, and you basically go through, you copy down all of the stats into the appropriate section of the character sheet. They have a cost of 6 MP. So for people without such immense resources like myself, that would be the entire cost that you're allowed at character creation. Luckily, I have a bit more to play with. But they get all of these different stats and abilities, and so I decided to spend one of my MP getting the lethal trait, and then 2 more getting pain tolerance. So that's 3 of the 4 that I'm allowed to spend for MP, which means I get 1 more gear point during the gear section. So if we then go to gear, you normally all you get are things determined by your class and interests and things. Sorry, not class, your job. So if we go to page Gear Pack 68, if we go to this page, we were a soldier, if you recall. So I'm going to scroll down to soldier, and we get all of the following: an assault rifle railgun, enhanced vision, 5 doses of a thing called Grin, 5 doses of meds, and Neurochem. You can take the time to look up what all of those do. I'm just going to skip to after I've added them to my character sheet. And I've finished filling out my gear. So I have enhanced vision, Neurochem, Grin, and meds from my table. And then with the 5 GP that I had to spend, 4 due to having resources tier 4, and 1 due to having not spent all of my MP in the last step, I purchased myself 3 things. I got myself a cleaner swarm, and then for 1 GP, I got myself a monofilament blade for 1 GP, and then I got second skin armor for 1 GP, which brings me up to 3 spent so far, and then I got the chameleon modification for it for an additional 2. So that takes me up to 5. I've spent all of my GP. So after you've finished spending all of your gear, character creation is pretty straightforward from that point forward. You filled out your... Oops, sorry, I forgot to fill out soldier and fighter up here. But you would fill out how many res points you have, which is 0, because you haven't played yet. Same with RP spent. And then you choose your 3 motivations. So these are things that should tie to your character and what they want. It gives you a bunch of suggested ones. Your first one should be tied to your character goal in some way, or to your faction in some way. So I'm going to say philanthropy, because, I'm Venusian, friendly hyper-capitalism. Then I'm going to say skill mastery, because I want to be really good at sneaking, killing things, and I want to get, perfect that. And then let's say wealth, because my character likes money. And so that sets up motivations, and at that point, it's just final touches. So that was my quick tutorial on how to make a character in Eclipse Phase 2nd Edition. I hope that helps, and I hope that you can use this to help you create your own characters.